Back with another edition of Liberty Lately. Dexter Henry, the great women's sports reporter for the New York Post. Madeline, Kenney, we are back. It's the off season, but we're here to talk some Liberty basketball, and we're coming to you right after the new Liberty head coach, Chris DeMarco, was just introduced to the media for the first time. I guess I'll start with this, Maddie. When we looked at the introduction, and GM Jonathan Kolb also spoke here today too, we learned about what Jonathan Kolb was looking for in this hire and through the search, which was very thorough. He meant to say that multiple times. What did you learn about from his process in the hire and what he said today? What did you gain from that in terms of how thorough this search was and what exactly he was looking for as new head coach at Liberty?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the search went on for 2 months, and I had reported previously that Chris DeMarco emerged kind of late in the process. And what Kolb said today was it was the tactical meeting that they had, which was a lengthy meeting where they go through like different scenarios. It's different film breakdown. It's give him a clipboard, see how he's going to run a team in those late game situations. And that's what really set him apart and made them want to have him. I mean, I think when you look at DeMarco, there's so many things that they were looking for that he fits the bill. I mean, between his championship pedigree, he's been a part of a dynasty. He has seen the integration of star players, like how that works and that dynamic to, add players to a locker room where the hierarchy is already established, because obviously that can always be a challenge at times. And I think also, he's worked his way up. He's done every single position that you can as a coach, except for, he was a head coach of the Bahamas men's national team, I guess. But like in the Warriors, he was everything except for Steve Kerr. And he was his right-hand man the last 2 seasons. So I think that essentially, it makes sense that what we learned is why, I guess, they decided to go with him.
Yeah, and I wanted to start with there because the process of what Jonathan Kolb was looking for mattered so much here. But then the big question, I think, for all of us in the media and the fans was, okay, what's the vision of Chris DeMarco? What vision does he have for this New York Liberty team? And he got asked a lot of questions today. He was asked about, okay, what's the offense going to look like? We'll get to that in a second. But from what you heard from him today in addressing the media for the first time, what do you think his vision is and how do you think it aligns with this franchise?
I mean, obviously he has championship expectations.
Yeah.
And he even said 2026, they're going to be contending for a championship. And I think that that's really exciting. I think the fact that he knows how hard it is to win a championship and knows how 10 times more difficult it is to get back there.
Yep.
I mean, and have that sustained level of success and that constant connectivity within a locker room and within a team, like that's what set dynasties apart from, one-hit wonders. And I think that the Liberty have made it very clear that they don't want to be a one-hit wonder. They want to build something special here that is like going to be sustained success. And so he's coming in with the mindset of like, how do we get that? What is, that connectivity going to look like, both in the locker room, on the court, off the court, out of Barclays, And so, I mean, the biggest thing that stood out to me is he's already contacted every single player via text or phone call. And he said that the biggest thing before he does anything, it's about earning the respect and the trust of the players. And so I think that kind of speaks volumes about like just the way that he's approaching this. Like he's coming from a very like human element and level. And, he was very honest today. Like he has no background in women's basketball really. And he's bought every single book out there about the Liberty. He's spending all of his off time when he's not, doing stuff with the Warriors. He's spending that like really investing and diving into the Liberty basketball, WNBA basketball, like looking at players that are playing internationally. So I think that obviously he's really excited and very committed.
I want to follow up on that because he did mention that and he was asked about that, not having the experience of coaching women's basketball. Does that matter here at all whatsoever? Or do you think it does, especially when it comes in terms of men coming into women's sports that maybe don't have that experience? Does that matter here at all? Or should the experience that he has from the NBA, the vast experience that he has also coaching internationally, should that also factor into how we look at this hire?
I think that basketball is basketball. And so like the X's and O's and all that, what is going to be interesting is like how he's preparing himself to coach women. And that's something I asked him. And that's when he kind of started talking about like, talking to players and building their trust and like getting them to know him as much as he's getting to know them. And so I think that, does it matter? I mean, time will tell. I mean, we've seen successes of people coming from the NBA side with little to no background in women's basketball and having success. I mean, Nate Tibbetts is the most recent example that we can just point to right now.
Yep, we saw that with Phoenix Mercury, and so he came from the Orlando Magic. We saw that happen there. One of the things that I found interesting that he talked about, Maddie, was that he talked about how he thought that the best success for teams was when it's player-driven. He talked about wanting to be collaborative. That seemed to be something that was attractive to Jonathan Kolb and the organization. Do you think the empowerment of players and having a voice in this Liberty system will bode well for them under Chris DeMarco?
I think so, and that's very like Warrior-esque of him,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
the Warriors are all about like, taking everyone collaborating and stuff. I think it was Phoenix Mercury's now GM Nick Urin was the one that suggested having Andre Iguodala go to the starting lineup in the finals that won a few years, well, more than a few years ago, I guess now. But yeah, but you know what I mean? Like I think that that's going to be really good for an organization like this, especially when you have established leadership within that locker room. Obviously, Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart are free agents, but all signs point to them resigning. I mean, Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart both said that they plan to be back in 2026 here. And so I think we can take them at their word for that. And because of that, like the bones of this roster are really strong, but it'll be interesting to see how they continue to add, to the pieces around it and what type of players that they're going to be targeting in free agency, which is a long ways away, obviously, because the CBA is still unsettled.
We still have that to settle. Now, I think one of the big questions is interesting because his background, Chris DeMarco, that is a defensive coach. But so many people have questions because he comes from that Warrior system about the offense. You asked him about this. I asked him about this as well. He didn't give us too much about what he thinks the offense will look like, right? And then I want to get specifically into players, but what do you think this offense could look like under him? Are you excited? Because it is different. It's going to be very different from what we saw in the Sandy Brondello. Feels like a change that was probably needed there. What do you think this offense could look like potentially under Chris DeMarco?
I think that obviously the Liberty's offense overall was a strong part of their game last season. Yes, there was times when they got stagnant or where the ball was not moving the way that it needed to be moving and humming. And so I think that there's going to be some Warriors influence into this offense. I mean, yes, DeMarco is a defensive-minded coach, but and he said this today, like as being a defensive-minded coach, he has to study offenses to understand
Which I thought was a fair point. I thought it was a great point.
It's very fair. I mean, and so I think that, he's been around, he's seen how Steph Curry moves without the ball. And I think that that's something they really want to work with Sabrina about is her off-ball movements and like relocation and what's that going to look like. I think, it'll be really interesting to see the type of players that they bring in. Like who are they going to pair Sabrina in the backcourt with? That's like one of the biggest questions I have right now.
Yeah, that's something we're definitely going to talk about through the offseason. The other thing that kept coming up, you heard this from Jonathan Kolb, you heard this from Chris DeMarco as well, player development, which he has a very strong background in too. This is a Liberty team with championship expectations. Sometimes you'll hear this, Maddie, in basketball. You can't have two timelines. You know this from your time when you're covering the Warriors.
Yeah.
You know this very
well. Don't get me started about two timelines.
Two timelines. You heard a lot about this. Do you believe that? Do you think it's possible you can still have the player development while you have a championship window?
I do, because I think that even when you look at like Sabrina Ionescu's game, like it's not done being developed. And so I think when we're talking about player development, it's not just taking like young players and like, developing them along so they can have breakout seasons. I mean, that's a huge part of it. That's the easiest way to look at player development, taking a role player and making them into a starter, obviously. But I think that player development has like layers to it, right? And so I think the biggest thing is, he has experience in that role. Like we've seen his success with Jordan Poole leading into the 2021-2022 season, how Jordan Poole was able to step in when Steph Curry went down with an injury and obviously played a huge part in that title run. He's worked very closely with Klay Thompson, one of the greatest shooters of all time. And he's those are just two examples of players that he's worked with. I mean, he's named off a laundry list of future Hall of Famers and NBA All-Stars. So I think that it'll be really interesting to see like his support staff that he builds around him. Obviously, Andrew Wade is the director of player development right now, but it'll be interesting to see like how much he mentioned he has some names in mind, some people that he's worked with in the past. So I'm curious to see, is he going to be targeting to build out his staff, people that have backgrounds in player development?
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to watch. I guess last thing for me here, Maddie, because it was very interesting. We saw some players show up today. Sab was here today. We saw laney-hamilton was also here in the building. But when you come from this press conference that we both just sat in and we saw Chris DeMarco also interact at a clinic with some kids and all that stuff, what's your major takeaway from what you heard from Chris, Jonathan Kolb today? What's the major takeaway as we look at this new era of Liberty basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I think the major takeaway for me is that DeMarco is going from a world-class organization with the Warriors, and he's coming into like a world-class organization with the Liberty. And that's a word that he kept repeating. And I think that the thing that can benefit the Liberty is he knows the standard to excellence and what it takes to have that sustained success. And so the Liberty haven't had sustained success over a long period of time. And so that's something that he's going to be really targeting, and that's what he's going to bring here. And so I think that, you know, it's exciting. He's going to have a lot of pressure on those shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it'll be interesting to see, like, you know, how I'm like ready for the season to start now. Like, I really wish that we were starting the season.
You're saying that, but then it's a long season and you're
That's
traveling
true,
and you're
that's true,
everywhere.
that's true.
But we'll have more of these videos to do. But you're right, it did give some excitement here in Brooklyn that you're ready for some W basketball start. Still got a lot to do, CBA negotiation, all that good stuff. We'll see how that is, but it was a good day for the Liberty. New head coach Chris DeMarco introduced. He did use the term world class a lot.
A
He
lot.
did say that a lot. There was some words used a lot, but world class was a lot. And Liberty are a world class organization. They're trying to win another world championship. We will see. That is the great Madeline Kenney, our fantastic women's sports reporter for the New York Post. I'm Dexter Henry. We'll catch you next time, another edition of Liberty Lately.